Welcome to Life, Biz, and All That Jazz, the podcast where real talk meets transformation. If you're navigating your mental health, sobriety, or healing from trauma, or just want to have a life that truly feels like yours, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Jasmine, and every week we share the raw, we share the messy, we share the transformations. If you're new here, welcome to the family. If you've come back for more, thank you for coming back and trusting in my vision. Today's episode may include some sensitive and emotional topics, so I please ask that you listen with care, take breaks when you need, and read the show notes for more details. Today's episode is for the multi-passionate creatives, the grief holders, the people that know that they deserve more, they just don't know where to start, to the people that have been through the thick of it and feel like things just continuously hit them down. This one's for you. In today's episode, I'm joined by Amanda Graham, a screenwriter, a speaker, an author, and a storytelling powerhouse. Amanda opens up about her story, grief, ambition. We tell a little bit about ADHD and just knowing that no matter how many times you get knocked down, every single one of these times is connecting the dots. We'll break down a little bit more what we're talking about, but that's enough from me. Let's bring in Amanda. Amanda Graham, welcome to Life, Biz, and All That Jazz.
It's an absolute pleasure, Jasmine. Thanks so much for inviting me. I'm excited.
No, the pleasure is all mine. I really love having people on that have similar values, but also have a different story. And I think that's what we're going to uncover today is your path. And, so our listeners can know that we're all on different journeys, but our journeys are an important part of where we want to get to, which I know you'll be able to unpack a little bit further for us. So before we get started, what's one little quick win or, quick takeaway that you think our listeners will take from our conversation today?
Oh, that's a great question. I think one of the takeaways would be that healing is an ugly process and it is not yoga by a waterfall, at least in my experience. And healing, if it doesn't involve snot bubbles and, it all getting so trapped that when you try and swallow, it clicks, all that stuff. You have to be ugly cry and everything to be in the healing process, I think. And people don't talk enough about that.
Yes, that's very important. And I think once you get through certain parts of healing, and for me, like life is going to be a lifelong healing journey.
Yep.
But the fact that when you do go through trauma and you experience loss in your life, you're never the same person again. And there's always going to be parts of you that are going to get triggered or, life's going to happen as well. Things are just going to come up again. So we really need to be able to see where we've come from, but then also know that where we're going is also going to be more, probably need more healing and like more along that journey. So yeah, I love that. We'll unpack that one a little bit more. But to start off now, let's take it back. I'd love for you to go back to talk about what life was like before you kind of understood. And I know you mentioned this before, something I read, is that all the dots were connecting. I'd love for you to go back and tell us a bit more about the beginning.
So the discovery of the dots, like the beginning of the healing journey.
Yeah, as far as you want to go back,
okay.
you take us back where you want to go.
Well, like probably plenty of your listeners, I did not have the most ideal youth. There was a lot of religious fundamentalism that kind of colored everything that I did, and there wasn't a lot of joy. I mean, you would. When you're in an unhappy situation, I think you do what you can to find joy in little pockets, but I don't know what it's like to have a happy childhood, and I don't actually remember a lot about it. So, but most of my youth was a lot of chaos. And the older I got, when I hit my 20s and stuff, it was trying millions of different things and millions of different jobs and not really settling on anything, just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I moved around a lot. And so when I was in my mid-20s, I moved back to England, which is where I'm from originally. And I had met the man who was going to be my husband. And that was great for a long time. And then once we split, it was like the chaos just completely came back in again. And everything was kind of a pit that had to be filled with, I don't know what, and so I guess those early 40s were experimenting to see what it is that this new life would mean for me. And I thought I would get it sorted pretty fast, but let me tell you, Jasmine, I did not get it sorted fast. And I got into this pattern where everything that I tried wasn't working. Like I would look around at the people around me and it seemed like they had their stuff together, like their relationships seemed fine. They had work that was meaningful and consistent. And I was here and I just couldn't get any part of anything together. Um, so we got to a point about, I guess it was 10 years ago, 12 years ago, where things got so bad. I remember I was laying in my bed, which was upstairs, and no heat because heat is expensive when you are broke and don't have a job. And I remember like thrashing in my bed, going, I cannot go on like this one more minute. I can't go on like this another minute. And please, I didn't even know who I was praying to. I had no idea. And I was like, I just need something. I need something, a bit of encouragement to keep me going because nothing in my life is making sense. So the next morning is when everything changed. So I came downstairs and I don't know why, but I had the biggest impulse to put on YouTube. And so I did. And like for the first time ever, a motivational video came on. And, the kind where the people are running very slowly and doing long jumps, and there are voiceovers of people saying very dramatic things, very important things. And so I was like, oh, well, this is new. And I sat down on the sofa and then I heard Steve Jobs' voice. And I was like, well, I know his voice because I've heard him give speeches and stuff. So it's like, all right, what have you got for me, Steve Jobs? And he said, I've got a message for everybody whose life isn't making any sense. And you're trying really hard and nothing's working. And I was like, yeah, that's me. Oh my God, that's exactly what I prayed for yesterday. And he's like, so you must listen to me because it all comes down to this. And I was like, okay, yeah, Steve Jobs, tell me what it is. What do I need to know? And he said, it's only when you get to the other side of the crisis that you can look back and connect the dots. And I was like, that's it. Dots. Dots. That's the big grand message of what the
Yes.
God or the universe in my life was sending me, dots. And I did not sit down and meditate on it and cogitate on it. I got really mad. And that is how the journey started, with like a lot of anger at like, you have got to be kidding me. And it wasn't until a good year or two later of even more crises and problems and whatever that I started to be able to go, oh no. Oh, okay, that's a dot. So like when you have a lot of chaos and you try things and nothing's working and it's just failure after failure, and then you get a big win, you go, oh wait, I wouldn't have had this win if this thing hadn't happened, right? This thing specifically had to happen and then this thing for me to get to this place to meet this person that would bring this into my life. Or as a writer, I'd be like, oh, when I wrote about this experience that was the third worst time in my life, that's the thing that helped me sell the script here or whatever else. So the dots started connecting, and I was even more annoyed that he was right. But as time went on and life, pandemics and breakups and heartbreaks and being broke and being on welfare and not on welfare and then having to work 6 jobs at the same time, it all puts you on this really bizarre zigzag path. That if you're open and start recognizing the patterns, then you start looking for the ways that you're supposed to go in. And that's really what started shifting things. And so for me, it was really important when I, wrote and chatted with people and gave speeches and whatever, was to let people know that I get the chaos. I get how exhausting it is to not be able to see your way out of the fog. It's just fog for years. And I think that dots thing was the thing that really the thing that saved me. Really, the thing that saved me. And I just wanted other people to know that that those dots are there. They really are.
And that once you see that as well, as it is very hard for someone that's listening and it's just fog, and they haven't had their message or for yourself at the time when you saw that motivational video. You, like you said, you weren't embracing that. You were like, is that all you've got? And it's always something happens, and then later on it'll be like, aha, well, that's what, that purpose was. And the big reason why I share what I share is because I did a lot of my journey, my healing journey, through the thick of it on my own. And I know a lot of other people have. Then I talk to them, similar to yourself, is like, you have to go through this survival mode. And at the time, nothing seems right. But what is happening to you is preparing you for what's next.
Oh my God. So I couldn't agree with you more. And what's wild is when you're going through those periods, it really triggers your inner child, right? Like and your inner child is just begging for someone to come in and tell you exactly what you need to do. And there is no one to tell you exactly what you need to do, right? Like there's no one taking charge. There's no adult in the room to do this. You're the adult in the room while you're the child at the same time. And
Yes.
like, and that's why I think that uncertainty really triggers us, because so many of us, especially those of us who've had to do the journey on our own, haven't had that adult to tell us what to do. And it is really hard negotiating an unknown kind of landscape, with a no map, no directions, no tools, no navigation. The sat nav is down, and whatever else. It's that's what's so exhausting.
I think a big part of it as well is once you start to see some signs that, things are going your way.
Mm-hmm.
It's about embracing the unknown. And I talk about this a lot, and the comfort. Like, I actually enjoy being uncomfortable now. And if you told me that a few years ago, like 5 years ago, I wouldn't be saying, I want to be uncomfortable. But I know that now I'm at a certain stage that, every time that I become uncomfortable, it's more growth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think for you, on some level, that you've handled the crap in the past but now you have more resources, more, you have more wisdom, so that you can tackle whatever in an even more impactful way?
Yes, definitely. I think one of the biggest things for me is having that self-awareness is a big thing, and being self-aware and not being triggered. If something triggers me in a way, it doesn't, I don't react. Like, if I feel a certain way, I really dive deep into, why am I feeling this way now? I have worked out a lot of coping mechanisms, but then there are also ways that I'm able to handle situations when they do come up. And I think it's just having that optimism that I probably got through the hard times in my life, like some really hard times. So knowing that I am where I am today, and a big part of my journey is sobriety. And I don't think I would be where I am today, and as far as I am today, if I still drank alcohol. Because removing that, I think I just become more confident in myself, and also listen to my intuition, and don't have to. And also the crying that you mentioned earlier is that healing. I went through a big period when I stopped drinking for months at a time, and I was living on my own at that time. And I think I really went through like losing my dad properly then, and where before I just bottled things up or to have a wine, and it was just that surface level healing, where really diving in and removing that, I was able to really dive deep and feel everything, and then leave that behind. And now it's about trusting my intuition, knowing that what's going to happen for me. It's a little bit leaving it up to the universe, God, whatever anyone wants to have as their beliefs or, religion. I just feel like I am where I am right now. I'm happy. I'm content. I'm not trying to be like anybody else. I've really just accepted where I am and what I'm doing. Long as I'm doing my passion, which I am. My podcast is my passion. I still have a job, but it's my own business. So I still kind of have both sides. I'm doing what I want when it comes to an income, but then my passion projects is being able to help people. And it is hard to say right now that everything that I do and my life, I'm just kind of just really content and happy. And that's why I just want to share to people that, you can get to this point as well. And it's not easy, but just constantly keep moving forward, one foot in front of the other, and just know that you're never alone. No one is ever alone. And I think it's hard to hear people, especially if someone's listening and they are like really in the thick of it. Fog is everywhere. They can't see through anything. Of how do I get to that? Like, I can't relate to that, but just know that where we talk now, and that's why at the start of each episode I like to take it back, because
Yeah.
we went through the thick of it and now we get to share it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
One thing as well, so you've been through a lot of different chapters. You've mentioned before that you were in a cult. So was that when you were a child? And I know this is in
Yeah.
your book as well, which we will talk more about your book after, but for now.
Yeah, I was so I had been in like very strict Christian fundamentalism from the time I was like probably 10. We were Mormons first, but that wasn't anywhere near as strict as this was. But the bad church is what I call it, the bad church. That started when I was probably about 12, lasted about 2 or 3 years, and then it just spectacularly blew up. But it was really bad. I mean, we're talking not just that we weren't allowed to wear pants in the winter, and like we were trained to breastfeed by the time we were 11, 12 with
Wow.
baby dolls and stuff like that. But it was the control. So nobody was allowed to question anything, and the pastor had control over every single thing. And if we were he used to have this thing, because it was the 80s, right? It was the 80s, and jean jackets were a very big deal in the 80s. You must understand, Jasmine, right? And of all kinds. And so I had a jean jacket, and our pastor used to call it Jean Jacket Rebellion, because he grew up in the 50s where jean jackets were also big, and they were a sign that, like, if you wore a jean jacket, you were obviously had 15 joints in your mouth at the same time, and you had a knife, and you had just stabbed multiple children and whatever. And so he used to call me a jean jacket wearing Jezebel. And at like 13, because
Wow.
I would quit, not because I did anything wrong. I never drank. I never did. I never did anything. I obeyed everything, but I would have the audacity to like question something, or like I would look out the window, and the boys were allowed to play outside. They were allowed to play sports, and they were allowed to do all this stuff. And we weren't. We were inside learning how to bake cookies, learning how to breastfeed, learning how to submit. And I thought that was annoying. And so, because I was autistic and didn't know that I was, and so I
Yes.
would just say, why is this like this? Why is this like this? And that for him was coded as rebellious. And anyway, it all ended up being meaningless, because he ended up sexually abusing like at least 6 women that we know of in the church, and it all blew up. And then we had to go into hiding, and we were at our friend before it really before we had to go into hiding. We were at a friend's house, and they were in our church too, and he showed up with a gun, and
Oh,
because
wow.
everybody in the church was so poor, 'cause everybody would give their money to the church, and so they didn't have a phone, so we couldn't call the police, and it was just wild, like knocking through the walls, trying to get the neighbor to call the police, but not being loud enough where he could hear us. And then somehow, I remember now, because the I'm not going to say their last names, but the dad of the friend's house we were at said to the pastor that, like, we have called or the neighbors have called the police, and you need to go. So he left, and then we went to a farm. We hid on a farm until everything blew over, and miraculously they made him leave the church. And the only reason that happened is because he was writing down the threats and putting them into people's mailboxes. So there was actual physical evidence. Usually what
Wow.
happens when a cult splits is that the pastor stays, and then the people who are the victims leave. But yeah, it was just wild. And funnily enough, I have a real problem with people in power when there's no accountability and there's no, and you can't question it and whatever. And in my script writing, my screenwriting, what I write about is rebels going up against power systems, ridiculous power systems that people don't challenge and whatever else. Like it's my big thing. It is. I don't think that's ever going to change as well. Like I've been so triggered the past 15 years watching, so much bad stuff, even more than usual go on, and people just be unaccounted. Like there's just no accountability. And that's really hard for somebody like me who's lived through something like that and just seeks justice and does their best to protect people. And, uh, to just see the world just go, like that. That's tough for me to watch. That's the short answer, Jasmine.
I feel that I definitely understand that would be tough to watch because
Mm.
like you went through this years and years ago, and it shouldn't be happening still now. There shouldn't
Mm.
be that inequality of power, people in power. And I think another thing as well, I just admire too, because I feel like you've brought your creativity side out, and I was really picturing myself back then, obviously being ADHD
Mm.
and being in a room and looking outside, or for one, already being inside a classroom was not my thing. And I
Yeah.
know that, yes. And then having to watch outside.
Yeah.
And I think that would have been really difficult for you to want to question things. And your creative brain, we think so much deeper with things and feel, and yeah, it would have been definitely a tough time for you to go through. Not only, anyone to go through, but especially with going through as a woman. And so you would have been trying to figure out your own feelings, or why do I think like this? Did you have any friends that you related to in
Oh
that
God,
time?
100%. See, because
Oh, that's good.
it was so weird because it wasn't like a cult in that we were walking around in robes and lived on a commune. We were there all the time, but
Yes.
I went to regular school, so it was so weird having a foot in regular world and then a foot in, you know, the church world.
Wow.
And so, but so obviously to the regular people, I was weird anyways. I mean, and I didn't know it was because of my neurodivergence. I thought it was because I was in a cult and I wasn't allowed to listen to the same things. But what made me get through that was comedy, like, and part of that was rebellion. So me and my friends in our church we had these pockets of rebellion, where we would hide uh, not sinful things for each other and share sinful things, share tapes. We would tape things like the radio stations on top of Christian hymns and stuff on tapes, and we would pass them to each other. And we had
Oh,
what I call DSPs, designated stashing places, where we would hide like our Bon Jovi tape or our Janet Jackson tape or whatever. And so we would kind of talk about all the pop culture stuff at the time. Um, and and that kind of saved me really. Like, and I would have to sneak comedy tapes and uh little funny things, and we would do things like watch TV when my mom didn't put the TV away in the closet for God knows how long. But we would have like a one finger on the on button and one finger on the off button so that we could hide it real quick and then jump into our beds, like if she sensed something was going on. So that's what helped us, like, really. And it's so funny because the first script that I got optioned, one of the ones with Olivia, is literally me writing about those very specific times with my friends. And,
wow.
I think, rebellion is underestimated. When you feel powerless, I think it can be really overwhelming because there's so much you have to change and there's so much you have to deconstruct and tear down. But we forget that there can be moments here, an hour here, 2 days there, whatever else, where we can find joy. And joy, I think, is the ultimate act of rebellion. The ultimate act of rebellion. Um, yeah. So friends, 100%, they will get you through your toughest times, I think.
I love what you said then about joy and rebellion,
Mm.
because joy is
it's underrated, I think, just little moments of joy, natural joy, like
Yeah.
finding joy in little things and finding joy in things that, you like used to find joy in as a child, because that's a big part, I think, of really connecting with your inner child. And you can't move forward. Oh, I don't see a possibility to heal without doing some type of inner child work. Do you agree?
Oh my God, yeah. Like, there's so many
Mm.
things that my inner child needed that I didn't get, and I'm not unique in that. There are loads of us who can say that. But what was weird was, and I don't know if a lot of other people feel this way, but I specifically remember at that time, like, thinking about the church and what I was like, "You are not gonna ruin you are not taking these experiences away from me because years later, you're gonna be dead, and I'm gonna be like, I did nothing in my child I didn't enjoy anything in my childhood." The perfect example is, like, the Monkees are my favorite band of all time, laugh if you will, but I love them. I'm obsessed with them. It's a lifelong obsession with them. And when I was 15, my uh, my best friend, RIP, who died this year, we went to see them, and I had to hide it. But I remember specifically thinking, "I need this. You are not taking this away from me." And I took a beating for it. I took the worst beating of my life for that when they found out, but it was totally worth it. It was totally worth it. My child needed that, and I knew that, like, that I would be filled with so much regret if I didn't find a way to experience those things. So, yeah,
I'm glad that you did. That makes me
yeah.
happy that you did, because you do hear a lot of stories with similar to yours with that, and they don't get shown into any of the outside world, and they don't even have the courage or the opportunity. So you definitely had the courage to step out there and do what you had to do. And I think that you can look back now and obviously there was consequences, but
Yeah.
you did what you had to do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if it was courage because I didn't go, "I'm scared and I'm gonna do it anyways." It was more anger. Um, "I'll show you.
Okay.
I'll show
Yeah,
you. You're not controlling me. You control
that's
everything else
good.
about me, but this is gonna be one thing that I'm going to have for myself." I think it was more spite.
Yeah.
I don't wanna take, like, like a good character trait when I didn't have it. I think it was spite.
Oh, I see it as still courage. Obviously, there's mixed with a bit of spite.
Okay. Alright, I'll take
Yeah.
that. We'll compromise. We'll split the difference, Jasmine.
Yeah. And one thing that I read that you wrote is like the reverse engineering. You did
Mm.
some reverse engineering. So let's unpack that a little bit, because I'm big on reverse engineering, and
Yes.
especially I talk a lot about, goal setting. And I think if you know what you want, like where you want to go, and it could be hard for people to think, oh, I don't know what I want, but
Uh-huh.
it starts off with an overall picture of an idea or a goal,
Yeah,
and then working back.
yeah, yeah.
So you did this with your career after,
Yep,
you said multiple jobs that you
a
lost to
million.
AI and
Yep.
everything like that. So the best thing about reverse engineering that you'd say?
Well, when I first used to do reverse engineering, I used to do like, okay, here's the goal I want. So what is the formula? Like, what are the building blocks going backwards that I need to get from there to here? So, for example, like when I wanted to write comedy for TV, and I just couldn't break in, I couldn't like get in, I couldn't figure it out, and so I was told by a BBC executive, you have to do stand-up comedy and show us that you're serious about comedy and everything. So then I just reverse engineered, okay, what are the steps I have to do to start doing stand up and then get, and that worked. But then
Yes.
but the problem with that was that I found that for some of us who do things usually really indirectly, um, that you might guess the building blocks wrong. So then what I started doing was reverse engineering my failures because those had already happened. So I could, like nothing would change if you know what I mean. So with when the pandemic happened and obviously our industry collapsed, I was writing an animation film for three companies that were putting together a feature. And I was really excited because it was my first feature, and then, of course, the pandemic happened, and the poor woman whose project it was, her mom died in the very first wave, like the very, very, the refrigerated trucks, very first wave. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, yeah, it was like I remember before it spread to the US, because, obviously we're here in Europe, and it came through here this way first.
Yes.
And so her mom died. And so obviously the whole thing collapsed. And then about 3 or 4 weeks later, the industry was gone. We were in lockdown and whatever.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
I had no money, no savings, single mom. I was just like, my God, what am I going to do? And over here, there was no stimmy, no financial help for freelancers, no nothing. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to have to do something really fast. What am I going to do? So I went, well, okay, I did like a little appraisal. I was like, I'm not going to panic. I was panicking. I was totally panicking. But I was like, I'm
Yeah.
not going to panic. I'm just going to think, okay, what have I got around me that I can do that nobody else can do? So, and I had for the last couple of weeks before then, I had been talking to a lot of writers, right? Tons of writers, because we were all out of work all of a sudden. So LA writers, New York writers, London, all over the world. And we were all bitching about it and talking a lot and sharing scripts and doing stuff. And I was like, well, hang on a second. I was like, one of the reasons that I'm in the position that I'm in is because I am a terrible networker. I hate doing it and I suck at it. And in our industry, you have to remind people you're alive. You have to have really good relationships with people all over the world to get jobs. And I knew that the reason why I didn't have the jobs and had struggled so much was because networking exhausted me. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do loads of research on the best ways to network and the things you do in person and online and whatever. And I'm going to follow that. And then I'm going to teach that to writers, because all writers suck at networking. So because most of us are introverts, right? So I did that. So I put a thing together. Really good at researching, because I used to write documentaries, like a research documentary. So I'm really good at being able to distill loads of information into like an
Wow. I
hour
love
or
that. I
two.
love
See,
research.
oh, that's a dot. That's a dot, right? See, that is a dot from
Yes.
my past.
Yeah.
And so I was able to distill all this information. So I didn't even charge anyone. I just was announcing. I was like, hey, everyone, I'm doing these networking things. Pay what you want, you know. And right off the bat, they were a smash hit, and people were sending me money. And I was like, oh my God, this is great. It was just enough. It wasn't a lot. I just want to hug myself when I say this, 8,900 pounds I survived on that year.
Wow.
8,900 pounds. But it all came from that. And, and bits and bobs. I was teaching one class at the university here too, online. Um, and, but it ended up being the biggest thing ever, because for two reasons. One, because now it's taken on its own momentum. And now I just got back from Tallinn, from Estonia. I'm going back to Scandinavia. I'm going to be doing Latvia, which I've never done before. That's exciting. I'm doing
Wow. That's so
sessions in
exciting.
London. I go all over the place, and I do them online and in person. And the other thing is, it becomes my own form of networking. Right. So I have to do a lot less networking, because when I go to a film festival and 200 people are sitting there and I'm solving their problems for them, then automatically, like, that's the best thing you could do, is solve somebody's problem before you've even met them. And so I've been able to forge some really amazing, wonderful relationships from just reverse engineering why I sucked at something so much and how I could change that. And that seems to be the formula that works for me.
That's really powerful.
Yeah.
I love that, because it's reverse engineering can be tricky. And I think the way that you've unpacked it is that it doesn't have to just be on where you want to go. It's like, well, what can I learn from my mistakes?
Yeah. And it's really key, though, to not, you got to be careful not to get in that trap of blame ourselves. Yeah, of course, because we do make bad decisions. But what I mean is, don't wallow in the blame. A lot of times we make the decisions we do because we're doing the best we can, but we just don't have the knowledge. And there's no point in being hard on yourself if you didn't have the knowledge, or if you weren't healed enough to make the right decisions, right? You wouldn't blame a child who's 3 for not knowing the knowledge of a 6-year-old. So like, we have to kind of do that with ourselves as well. And go, okay, yeah, I was kind of a fool back then, but I know better now, so I'm going to do better now, and here's how I'm going to do it. So we have to make sure we don't get into that trap.
We definitely can't blame ourselves.
Mm.
I think it's also removing the regret. But
Uh-huh.
forgiveness, I think forgiveness, and a big thing is when you kind of do unpack everything and you do that, deconditioning and find those new beliefs and question why you did the things that you did or you think the way that you did. It's like at the time everyone's always doing their best as well. And then you'll look back and think, oh, well, I did this because this is how I was feeling. Because I used to blame. I blamed a lot and regret. And I think that's then why alcohol was so easy for me, because it quietened my mind. And this is before knowing I had ADHD. It was just that easy. I love a glass.
Yeah.
My mind's quiet and I can just kind of escape. It's that
Yeah.
escapism. And when I got to a point of forgiving and knowing that I did my best, everything that we did in our past, we might not be happy with choices that we've made.
Yeah.
But at the time we didn't know any better. And I think if you've got the best intentions, and it can be hard too, because if we've done things that have hurt other people, trying to mend that wound. But I think a big thing with healing and moving forward and getting through those steps, connecting the dots, we'll call it, is forgiveness and not to blame.
Oh God, 100%. Like I think it's really, I can't remember who said it's okay to like challenge your brain. It's okay to literally talk to yourself like, okay, hang on a second. And I always
Yes.
tell people, like when we're chatting about, oh, I wish things had been different, or I wish I had had this 20 years of my life back again, or why couldn't I have done this earlier? How different would my life be? And I always go, okay, wait, stop. Let's just stop here, because what part of our brain gains from that type of thought? It's not the healthy part of our brain. It's not the part of our brain that is focused on growth and getting our lives to the point we want to go to. It's the part that wants to keep us behind, because it's all shame-based. And shame has
Yes.
nothing to do with growth at all. It is the antithesis of growth. So, yeah, so it's okay. Like sometimes, I don't know if you're the same way, Jasmine, but I'll be like in my flat and my brain, because ADHD, it was like this all the time. And so random thoughts, and my brain will say something so shocking to me. And I'm like, and I will stop and go, wait, Amanda, no, that's an old tape. I'm not playing it. That's an old mixtape. I
Yes.
am not playing that again. I'm stopping that here, because there is nothing healthy that has that that thought has come from. So I cannot allow it. So and I'm not perfect. I don't do that with every thought, but at least the process is there. You know what I mean? At least the process is there now.
And once you do realize that your brain is always just trying to keep you safe, that's a big thing. It's the negative. It always defaults to the negative, and our brains, it thinks without us
Yeah.
being able to control it. Like you said, the thoughts, intrusive thoughts come all the time. I have them all the time, and it's really sitting back and thinking, why am I thinking like this again? Why have I gone back to that? And just knowing that it's not true. And when you do it a few times, it gets easier and easier, and then you catch it to begin with. You don't spiral, because then once you have that one thought, and I always say too, it's about how we talk to ourselves, but it's also about how we think about ourselves. And if we could try and revert that thought,
I think
and
you're
just
so
listen.
right. I'm just actively agreeing with you, because I think you're
Yes.
so right. And I don't know if you've read, I like to try, I'm a missionary when it comes to this thought, but it's not my thought, but Gay Hendricks wrote this book called The Big Leap. If you are wondering how to get rid of all the crap and really live up to your potential, this book is amazing. Please get
What's
it. But
it called?
it's called The Big Leap. Yeah, and it's by
Oh,
Gay
okay.
Hendricks, and it's got a little goldfish leaping from a little bowl to a big bowl. But I just have to say this, because it's
Oh,
the
so I
most
feel like I've
amazing
heard
thing.
of it.
Yeah, it's a big book, but this changed so many things for me. So Gay Hendricks, he's this amazing author. He's like on LinkedIn and stuff. But all right, so he talks about happiness like this. So why we tend to self-sabotage ourselves, why we tend to like be so hard on ourselves and whatever else is, he explains it like this. So it's called the upper limit problem. So when we're kids, we have our happiness set like a thermostat. It's at a certain level, right? Depending on our circumstances and how much love we get and nurturing and how chaotic everything around us is. So it's like set at a temperature, and that's where your happiness ceiling is, right? No more than so degrees. So what happens is, if anything good happens in our lives, it pushes the thermostat up too far. And then just like air conditioning, it kicks in and pushes it back down to the level that we think it should be at. And that's why we self-sabotage. That's why we say horrible things to ourselves and whatever else, because our brains go, wait, I'm not used to this. This is not where I should be with happiness and whatever else. It needs to be back down to this level. And it's so wild, because I'll bet you can probably with your sobriety come up with a million times where you immediately cracked open a bottle of wine the second something good happened to you. That was my thing too. Like, my self-sabotage is usually celebrate, get paralytic, and make yourself feel like crap for a couple days afterwards. And it always happened after I had something really good happen to me. So I just wanted to point that out to people. So whether it's, did we do something dramatic, like make ourselves sick, or we're late for the first day of work on the job that we really want, or if we're just being mean and saying horrible things to each other, it all comes back to that amount of happiness that we think we deserve in our lives. Yeah, once I saw that, once I read that, I was like, it's such simple thought, but I could spot everywhere I was doing it. So yeah, I couldn't agree with what you said more. It's absolutely how it's manifested in my life. 100%.
Oh, that's really good. That's a different way I've heard of it. I know a lot about the hedonic set point, and that obviously relates to alcohol, and that's with dopamine, and our limit of our hedonic set point will change. But this is still in another thing as well, which is quite similar. So that's good. I'm going to have a look at that book. I love
It's really good.
I love recommendations.
Yeah, it's a big one. It's a big one on the list. Yeah.
Talking about books, let's have a chat about your book. So, good stuff to read when you're about to lose your shit.
Yes.
So you're obviously a writer.
Yeah.
And was it easy to write your own book?
Because
you've always written for work purposes, is that right? Like, it's never really, and it's, you've always like kind of had, was it more for other people to use?
Yes. So I wrote, I had done the documentaries for like 6 years for the Beeb and Channel 4, and then I moved into screenwriting and script writing, and so it was always everybody else's ideas, shows, whatever else. I've got my own stuff going on too, but yeah. But because this decade has been so difficult, one of the things, like, you'll see, there's a lot of self-help books back there. And I love self-help books because sometimes you can learn things, and I like to pick like apples off a tree, a little bit of this wisdom and a little bit of this wisdom, and then kind of distill it, right? And one of the things that I found very annoying about self-help books, besides the fact that most of the time they were written by people who didn't really understand what desperate crisis and stuff really was. I was just like, okay, talk to me when you're
it's
up
hard
at night and you don't know how you're going to pay your bills, and like, okay. But so that was the first problem. But the second one was that they assume when you're in a crisis that you've got the time to sit and read a chapter for 2 hours and then do a workbook. And that is not how crisis works. And so I was like, what I needed was something that if I only had enough energy, enough spoons for like one sentence, I could turn to a page and get the sentence that I needed to get through that hour, get through that day, or whatever else. Because I find that when you're really about to lose your shit, you're like in your what I call my crying closet, or you're in the car sitting there for 15 minutes numb, trying to figure out how the hell you're going to get through the rest of the day, whatever else. And self-help books just really didn't understand that. And so I wanted to write something that not only made use of all of the things that I had learned, but also was given in single size servings, and you could skip through the book. And, I would specifically address, assholes or money or grief or whatever, instead of just kind of giving you like a one size fits all type of thing. I wanted to kind of almost personalize the experience so that people could just dip in and out. And so basically I was writing the book that I wish I had had.
Yes.
Yeah, I was writing the book I wish I had had.
What was the hardest chapter to write?
Grief. Because I had written the book, and then my best friend died, in
I'm
February.
sorry.
Yeah, this is my lifelong best friend, ride or die, talk on Zoom all the time, every day, that whole, "I'm so happy to have you in my life. I wouldn't know what I'd do without you." And she got ill. She had a cold, went to pneumonia. Then they had to put her in a medical coma, and then she had a stroke and died within 4 days.
Oh,
And so I didn't get to say goodbye.
that's okay. Take your time.
And I put off the publishing of the book by a month because my everything in me was like, okay, you got to do a chapter on grief. So I wrote the chapter when I was going through that like buzzing fog phase, you know what I mean, where you're not feeling anything and you're like, I just need to get through this hour. I just need to get through this hour. And you're like, your brain hasn't even gotten to the phase where you're like, what is my life going to look like without this person there? And so that was hard, but clearly, I needed to, there was a need, because when Missy died, like, it was incredible how many people came to me and shared their stories and how they had been struggling by themselves. And, it's all about, like, I think you had mentioned this in the podcast where you talked about the sobriety, where you do a lot of grieving on your own, like, people can be great for the first couple weeks or month or two checking in on you, but then one day you have to like close that proverbial door and be there on your own trying to process it, and because you're the person who's you know has got the loss. And so I guess it was pretty cathartic, but it was very difficult. And I think the most difficult part of writing the book period was the closer I got to the end, the harder it was. It was like I was road testing my material without even meaning to. Like that last 20 months, 18 months, I can't say who for privacy's sake, but somebody very close to me in my family had their second heart attack. Somebody else very close to me in my family had 2 strokes. The sale of my flat fell through 8 times. I either didn't have work or I had like 6 jobs trying to work everything at the same time. I couldn't afford heat. My nana died, Missy died, and 2 of my other friends died. It was just one thing after the like literally one thing. I haven't even talked about like million rejections in the industry and all that kind of stuff. That was nothing. And it was almost like, I don't believe in demons, but it was almost like demons were trying to stop me from finishing it. Yeah. So even though the writing of it was really joyful and I loved figuring out the meaning of things so that I could share them and whatever else, but it was really hard, but only because life was so difficult.
Thank you for sharing that.
I think grief, it's always, we're in our own journey when it comes to grief, and I think that can be quite hard. So I can imagine that writing about it and also experiencing what you experienced at that time would have been very difficult. So I appreciate you sharing that. And now that the book is done, are you thinking about doing another one? What's your plans?
Yeah, I wanted to do a book about audacity and how we need more of it, but there's already a big, very famous essay that's out there that I wasn't aware of, and I don't want to. That's there, and that's, I like to be kind of as original as possible. So I've got some other ideas.
Cool.
But you know what it's like when you're trying to narrow it down to the one thing because there's like 15 things that you want to do, and do you know what I mean? You're like, I writer's block ain't a problem for me or anything else. Like do you know what I mean? When you're just like, how do I choose?
Ideas and strategy and planning things is my forte, but it's like it's wanting to. It's to do things. So that's why now I really I'm growing my business, and that's in marketing, and I do a lot of stuff with some clients, and then the podcast, I'm growing that. And then I want to do this course with it.
I want to write a book myself. There's so many things that I want to do. I just started running. So like that's my new hobby. It's having all these things, but then also time to do it. And I know if I start too many things at once, I can't give my attention. And it's just that dopamine hit to start, like, to constantly do new stuff. So no, I understand what it's like to have a lot of things going on.
Oh, 100%. And, I have to confess, because people are always asking me when I do these networking things or I do talks on, screenwriting or whatever, people are always asking me like, well, how do you strike a balance between this and this? You're so busy all the time. And I'm like, I never said I struck a balance. I'm the worst person to, to look for. I work. I mean, don't get me wrong. I will, have fun with my son, or I'll have fun with my friends or whatever else. But I work from the time I get up till the time I go to bed, because I'm doing 15 different things at the same time. And if I'm not working as in paid work, I am looking for work, and that's my job. So I'm always working, and I'm a terrible example of it. But the problem is I love writing so much. I love sharing knowledge. And really, if we're being honest, I love telling people what to do. I used to be called Bossy Boots when I was little, and I love telling people what to do. And that's why I do so much advice writing.
Oh, that's funny that you say that, because I feel like I'm a little bit like that. And for me, it's not necessarily telling them what to do. It's more like just telling them how I have done things, like with obviously Healing Out Loud and that journey as well.
Yeah, I highly recommend taking it a step further. Like, and when you do talks and whatever, just go, okay, so here are the 3 things that work. Do this, do this, do this. It's like, it feels so good. It feels so good.
Yeah, having that authority. I think that's similar to where I'm kind of transitioning with a lot of the content that I share, is it just having more of that confidence and like niching down a little bit more, especially when it comes to ADHD stuff that I've learned and sobriety. So stay tuned. You might see some stuff. Well, I like to wrap up the conversation asking if you have anything else to share, and then I have a few little questions that we can go about.
Sure. I think what's most important is to be open to life not being what you think it's going to look like, and how that isn't the biggest tragedy in the world. I think what is a big tragedy is staying so focused on a particular outcome that you miss opportunities, and you miss being not misdirected, but having a little break from the path. I think there's a lot of things that we learn about ourselves and things in terms of our talents and our gifts that we wouldn't have gotten if we had been just so rigid, and life has to look this way. So I think it's really important to be open to the little alleyways and the little diversions that life sends us, because they can be magic.
Yes, I love that, because it's not necessarily that we're on the right path. If things come up, it's all right to go off the beaten track, as we can call it.
And also, one more thing, sorry, but it's okay to ask for help. But what I've learned because it's hard I struggle to ask for help. I was the oldest daughter. Like
Me too.
I'm so used to, you know what it's like. You're so used to filling in the gaps all the time, and, looking after a parent or looking after, a younger sibs and stuff. And you grow up like that's your responsibility. And so I really struggle with asking for help. But what I realized was that I was asking for help wrong. And what I mean is that we don't realize, because obviously our problems are the biggest thing in our lives, but our problems are not the biggest things in our loved ones' lives. Their problems are the biggest things. So what happens is, when we say vague things like, I haven't, like I would tell my friends and family, I haven't worked for 3 months. But what I should have done is sat somebody down and gone, okay, I haven't worked for 3 months. There's obviously a disconnect. Will you take an hour with me and help me find some leads? Or will you take 2 hours with me to help me look over my CV? Is there something I'm doing wrong that you can see that I can't see? I think people around us need specifics when we
Yes.
ask for help, because they don't know exactly what our situation is, even if we think that we've been moaning about it for ages and ages and ages. So that's the other thing, sorry, that I would get across, is like, just ask for help in a super specific way and you're far more likely to get it.
That's really important. And I think it comes back to just not having the perception that someone's going to understand what you're saying. And like, that's your view, like the way that you see something that you say, it's not going to be interpreted the same through everyone. I think that's
exactly
really,
it, Jasmine.
Yeah, that's good. Do you have any quotes that you go off, or mantras? Mine's progress, not perfection.
Love that. That is, woo, I think I might put that on. I think that might be my epitaph. Yeah, definitely. I quote Maya Angelou all the time, but that one that she says that, people might forget your name and they might forget what you do, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And I think that is that one. And then she has another one where, even basically, to boil down what she says, even in times in my life where I'm completely alone, I am never alone, because all of the love that other people in my life have given me, the wisdom, the experiences, have made me who I am. And so I am always taking the people that I have had in my life with me. And I think that's a beautiful way to look at if you're feeling really isolated or alone.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm.
And before we wrap up today, I will put all your details in the show notes, link to your book and everything like that. And Amanda, I just want to thank you so much for today. I really appreciate your time. We covered some really great topics and we went quite deep into some, and you've obviously had a very extraordinary journey and you got to where you are today. And I think what you're doing now and what you're being able to share, especially coming on as a guest and also in your career and life, it's really important. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me on, and the same with you. Your journey's been amazing, and the vulnerability that you lead with is amazing, and I know that it's helping people. So thank you for doing what you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much. So thanks again for coming on today, and to everybody else, I will see you next week. And just remember, it's progress, not perfection, and you are not broken, you are becoming.